Welcome to episode 1, in which your fearless host asks, "This is my life now. What's next?" Hey, it's Kriss, your positivity powerhouse. I'm glad to see you back again, or to hear that you're back again, or to watch you read because you're back again. I'm doing all 3 formats for this podcast just to make sure that everybody's accessibility needs are covered. Anyway, first episode, first quote. This one's really, really important to me. It holds a place of honor on my second monitor right over there. And the quote is, "This is my life now. What's next?" Jon Morrow said that after being in a horrific car accident. Jon is one of my personal heroes. He has a severe form of muscular dystrophy that has him in a wheelchair, unable to move anything at all but his face. Can you even imagine not being able to move anything but your face? Now, this guy who can't move anything but his face is actually a multimillionaire because he figured out a way to beat the system, got out from under disability, got out from under Medicaid, got out from under all of it by moving to Mexico so that he could get his health care and do his work there. And he has sold more blogs than I could even name off the top of my head. And I have a blog. And he's so amazing. You can find out more about Jon at unstoppable.me. Amazing. The first blog post on there is 7 life lessons from a guy who can't move anything but his face. Kind of on the nose there. He was in this car accident. He was driving his accessible van, I think it was a minivan, to somewhere. Now, Jon was in this horrible car accident. Some kid late for work was doing 80 in a 25, which nobody around here ever does. Never, 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 never. Bad idea. Don't do it. Because nobody here does it either. The guy T-boned him in his minivan, and he spent nearly a year in the hospital trying to recover from his legs were just shattered, and he spent a couple of hours laying in his wheelchair with his wheelchair pinned on top of him before paramedics could get him out. And he was in severe pain, and basically realized that he had a choice to make. He could either choose to be miserable about it, or he could choose to accept that it is what it is and move on from that point. So he said to himself, "This is my life now. What's next?" Now, how does that impact the triple M's of mood, mindset, and motivation? First off, mood. I'm always in a better mood when I look at this sticky note on my monitor because it reminds me that things could be so much worse. I'm disabled too. Those of you who don't know me, I use a wheelchair when I have to leave my house. I can't walk more than 5 or 6 feet without clinging desperately to something, anything I can get my hands on, people, animals, small children, whatever. Most of the time, walkers or a cane or a chair. And it's been like that for about 5-6 years now. And the best diagnosis I've got is, wow, that's really weird. Which, as I'm sure you can imagine, is a little frustrating. But when I read this message from the monitor, it reminds me that things could be so much worse. I mean, I might not be able to walk at all. I might have to have help every time I go to the bathroom. I might have to, I don't know, depend on home health care to come in and bathe me because I'm utterly incapable of even trying every once in a while to do it myself with help. Mindset, same as mood in this case. Reminds me that I need to accept things as they are, because acceptance is the first step. And then to accept that I have to deal with what is before I can move on to what's next. I've got to deal with the fact that I can't walk more than 5 feet before I move on to running a 5K, which actually was a goal of mine at one point, back before all this health insanity happened. I was actually training to run a 5K. I don't know why. It seemed like a good idea at the time. I mean, if you know me, you know that I'm not a runner and I've never been a runner, except for, you know, a brief stint in cross country in middle school that we don't like to talk about. But when I accept that some days I can't get out of bed, I can move on to, okay, so how can I work from bed and make that happen? Or when I accept that I can't go cook my own meals, all right, how do we work around this one? How do we move on to getting my caregiver my exact cooking method so that she can make the black bean enchiladas that I love so much, which she actually made. I'm so happy she made my enchiladas. It's exciting, and I'm verklempt and pardon. Okay, motivation. I'm reminded that I can move on to what's next, that it is possible, that it's not like what's next doesn't have a giant brick wall that nobody's paying for in between me and what's next. So I can move on to what's next. And because I can, I want to move on to what's next. And because I want to move on to what's next, I move on to what's next. I actually had in my notes on this show that because I can move on, that I should move on. However, should is a bad word. Never, 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 ever should you use the word should in your vocabulary, because it turns into like this giant rampaging beast with claws that catch and teeth that bite, and you don't have a vorpal sword to go snicker snack as you fight against it. It's just going to eat your head. And that's not good. You don't want, this giant should monster to eat your head. But that's what it'll do. It'll get in there and become insidious and just grow all kinds of pressure on you, because you should be making 6 figures a year, and you should be making dinner for your family from scratch every single day, and you should have the baby potty trained by the time they're 18 months old, and you should be teaching your own teenager how to drive your Mercedes because that's how you roll. All of the shoulds just add up and add up and add up and add up until you're crushed under the should mountain. And it's just bad under there. So eliminate that from your vocabulary. Move on with what you want to do, with what is possible to do, with anything other than should. You can use could. Could is a form of can. So you can remind yourself that you could move on, which means that you can move on, which means that you will move on. You're going to move on. You're getting around to moving on. You're moving on. And that's what's important. that you get out of that stuck place that you're in. You get out of your dark place, you get out of your scary place, you get out of your sad place, because this is your life now. What's next? Hit me up on positivitypowerhouse.com for any comments, for any questions. You can submit a request about the triple M's, the mood, mindset, motivation, that I'll address on a future episode. You can also join my Facebook group, the Positivity Power Club, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.